more than happy to take your questions, I think.
Thank you so much for being here. So you recently met with students and faculty at Morehouse College. Can you just talk to us about the concerns they shared and how you responded?
Sure, and I'll do my best to be clear and transparent, because I also promised the students I would keep our conversation as closely as I possibly could. But every day, as Director of Public Engagement here, we get out across the country. I try to spend at least 2 days of every week on the road somewhere, doing what my grandmother and other loved ones might say: God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You listen twice as much as you talk. And I really wanted to lean in with these young leaders to hear what they wanted to hear on their very special commencement day. Many of you know that 4 years ago, many of them were denied a commencement because of the pandemic. The greatest pandemic since 1918, and wanting to make sure that the president's goal to center these students and have a chance to discuss the real issues of the world that they might have to address as leaders going forward was important. So we sat there, we talked about everything. I mean, we talked about the status of the world. Certainly, many of them wanted to talk about the Middle East and war. We talked about reconnecting communities and the amazing $160 million going in just up the street, the Stitch project in Atlanta, working to undo some of the damage done by previous infrastructure investments, and how it's reconnecting in a very reparative and restorative way the Sweet Harboring community. We talked about wealth creation. Each and every one of these young men, who I will say were exceptional. 5 students, all graduating seniors, going off to do great things at fine institutions and great places to work. 4 faculty members and 2 administrators shared individually, one by one, the things that were important to them to try and hear. But the common thread was they wanted to make sure we were centering the young people, and the president did that on Sunday. So, but we talked on any range of issues. I have a college-age daughter who also attends an HBCU, and a 17-year-old as of today. Happy birthday, Jordan Grace Benjamin, who is plotting world domination and takeover as we speak. She's a real politician in the family, but their concerns and interest areas were not dissimilar from the 2 teenagers who live in our household.
And do you or the president have any concerns about the president's address overshadowing the commencement, as we've heard from some students publicly?
Sure. No, obviously, I think what's going to be most important are the words that the president articulates, and I know that he feels very deeply about what this means to these young men. And I say young men, many of you know that Morehouse is a unique institution. Some of you who are familiar with the legacy of the great school is probably the only place in the country, if not the world right now, where that many amazingly talented young men are being trained for leadership in the world at one time, young black men. No, the goal will be to make sure that we use this as an opportunity to continue to elevate the amazing work that's been done at Morehouse over the last century and a half.
Yeah, I do wonder, what kind of reception do you, having been there, expect the president to receive at Morehouse? Also, does he plan to have any direct engagement with students or faculty there? A lot of them that I've talked to have said, you know, we don't just want a campaign speech or a speech at us, but we want to be able to talk policy or talk about their issues.
Sure, I'm sure the president will have a chance to engage with faculty, staff, and students while he's there, and I know that he looks forward to it. Did I answer that question?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
the first one, what kind of, having talked to students in Morehouse, what kind of reception do you expect him to receive?
Sure, it's so important to realize that no community is monolithic. Even some of the range of opinions that we received last Friday, and that I've heard from speaking with literally dozens and dozens of folk just about this speech over the last several days. People have different thoughts about what they might want to hear. I do know that the president, again, is very focused on centering these young men and what this transition in life means to them. So we listen very closely. We've received those messages, and we shared those with the president and his speechwriting team.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy birthday to your daughter.
Thank you.
Does the president share the president of Morehouse College's belief that the graduation ceremony should be halted if there are protests or disruptions?
You know, I'm going to let Morehouse handle Morehouse, and let Dr. Thomas, who's been wonderful to work with, as we prepare for the commencement. I'll let him speak for Morehouse College. The president's been very clear. I mean, we live in a amazing country where you have 3 estates of government, and you have a 4th estate that personifies the importance of the right to free speech. And you do it well. That right to free speech extends to even those who wish to protest, and he respects that, and he makes it a point to lean in when there are protesters in the very same space. So we'll respect that. I think as long as they're peaceful protests that don't disrupt the amazing moment that is for each of those graduates there today, I think we'll all consider this a success.
Did the White House ever consider canceling the speech once you learned that there likely would be protests?
No, not that I know of, but I'll defer that to someone else. No, no, ma'am.
Hi, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Recent polls have Joe Biden and Donald Trump neck and neck among black voters, hoping to stay away from the Hatch Act. But do you think that the president's message is resonating with black voters?
Well, you have no responsibility to stay away from the Hatch Act, but I do.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. As I mentioned, I spend a great deal of time on the road. I mean, this is a wonderful citadel of democracy, D.C., the heart of the republic. But getting out and listening to people and hearing the impact of President Biden's and Vice President Harris's policies on helping change their lives inform my opinion as to where just everyday Americans stand. We're not going to talk politics. And I've had a chance to be, in Arizona, Nevada, Illinois, South Carolina, Georgia, New York, New Mexico, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, just in the last several months, and listening to people talk about the impact of amazing things like the criminal justice reforms and social reforms the president's led on how, in fact, creating access to capital and creating economic opportunity, leading to not just these precipitously low unemployment rates, but the greatest increase in number of black-owned businesses in 30 years. How we're not just talking about history like we are doing today with the Brown and related case defendants, but how indeed the president's making history every single day. That's the feedback I get from people, and I think we're gonna focus, continue on making history on this side of the table by just leading through good government and the leadership of the president and the vice president.